Okay, here we go. Another 21 video, 21 San Francisco bands. 21 San Francisco bands. I did a Manchester version, Manchester, UK, and I did a LA version. And the way I swing with Vinyl Richie, the way Vinyl Richie and I swing is we make up the rules so it can do whatever we want. So 21 can turn into a different number. Like, you know that Jimi Hendrix song, if 6 was 9? What if 21 was something else? In the background, I'm playing not music from San Francisco. This box set, Electric Psychedelic Sitar Head Twirlers, volume 6 to 19. Just psychedelic-y stuff with sitars and stuff. And that'll be playing maybe throughout this. But before I get to the 21, a couple things first. This is gonna be a really quick segment because this is a long video, or it can be a long video. Great collection Rhino put out, Love is But a Song We Sing, the song we sing. Love is the song we sing. A Rhino box, almost like a Nuggets box, but this overviews the sounds of San Francisco. And San Francisco is the entire Bay Area, so all these bands aren't primed from the city. Some came through the city, but they're pretty much considered San Francisco bands, going from the 60s up until fairly recently in a couple of cases. Great comp, wonderful comp, great booklet. Love this collection. And a highly suggested book from 1965 to 1985, way out of print, but by the rock music journalist Joel Sullivan from San Francisco, is San Francisco Rock. This is a great overview of the music scene, the punk scene, the psychedelic poster scene, Days on the Green, Bill Graham. Actually, I didn't include Mike Bloomfield in this particular one, but I could have. He came through the San Francisco and lived here and actually died here. The labels, the promoters, the clubs. So, the clubs, God, the Fillmore West, the Avalon, Winterland, the Mabuhay, the Fab Mab, the Def Club, the Boarding House, Slims, DNA, DV8, the Old Waldorf, Friends and Relations, the Family Dog, on and on and on. The Great American Music Hall. Oh, there's so many more. But anyway, so 21 bands from San Francisco. But before I start 21 bands, I'm gonna go through these really fast. These are not included in the 21, excuse me. These are not included in the 21, but I thought they should be shown. I'm not gonna say anything about them. Just say the name and go through them. Not in any particular order. Mad River. Grace Slick with the Great Society. Grace Slick's husband at the time, Darby Slick, and his brother. Great Society before she joined the Jefferson Airplane. From the South Bay, I believe, the Chocolate Watch Band. There was a big garage thing going down San Jose area starting in 65, 66. A lot of psych fans here love Chocolate Watch Band. Psychotic Reaction, Count 5. We Five, folk band. You Were on My Mind was their national hit from the Bay Area, San Francisco. The Charlatans with Dan Hicks before he started Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks. Not a great record. They were on the scene in the Fillmore and the Avalon, but never really kind of were considered. They're one of the early bands, but not considered one of the great bands. This could have been in my 21. I didn't include them. The Residents. This is their first rare album. 1,000 copies were pressed. Cease and desist orders existed because of the cover art. The Residents, avant-garde, conceptual collective, really cool stuff. And these are the heads they wore for a good part of their career. But the Residents, and aside from that, they kind of morphed at a collective of other musicians, including Snake Finger and Tuxedo Moon. Jonathan Richman, The Modern Lovers. Now, Jonathan Richman was from Boston, but came to San Francisco. He worked on a record with John Cale for a major label. The label decided not to put it out, and Matthew Kaufman, who started Berserkly Records in Berkeley, bought the tapes, remixed them, added some tracks, and the first Modern Lovers album was born on Berserkly Records. Berserkly, home of the hits. The Doobie Brothers. Now, I am not a fan of Michael McDonald Doobie Brother period. Obviously, he had some great hits, but this first record, actually, is this the first one? This is not, or the second one. Anyway, this album is the one to get. Toulouse Street, an amazing recorded, amazing produced sounding record. The opening guitar on Listen to the Music. If you have a decent stereo, just that song is an amazing song. I love this record. This is a really, really good record. You know, the Doobies don't get a lot of love here, but this record, and you can find it fairly cheap, this is the one to get. All the records, I'm glad they became a big hit band, but this is the Doobie Brothers as far as I'm concerned. Tom Johnson led band, the Doobie Brothers. Love it. Probably the most recent artist I have here is Wooden Ships, kind of a psychedelic, electronic, rhythmy, dirgy group, really interesting. Wooden Ships is spelled S-H-J-I-P-S. I have 3 of their records. This is the one to get out of the 3, I believe. This is a cool live record recorded in San Francisco. But Wooden Ships, the most recent band I have in here. One-hit wonders in a way, but they didn't. Their first album broke out in 1965, 66 maybe. Hello, Hello, Can I Have Some of Your Tangerine? Sop with Camel, great kind of vaudevillian rock and roll, really kind of a cool record. Sort of psychedelic, baroque. Cellophane Woman, Walk in the Park, Postcard from Jamaica. This is a good record on MGM Records. Kama Sutra Records, part of MGM. And they kind of morphed later. It had an early 70s album on Warner Brothers called Return, The Miraculous Hump Returns, which is a cool record. I have it, I didn't pull it. It's a Beautiful Day, one of the early bands on the Fillmore Avalon scene of San Francisco through the Summer of Love and just after that. This is a great record. The song Whitebird got a lot of radio play back in the day. A band you don't hear a lot on the vinyl community here and other places. The great soul blues swampy singer Tracy Nelson and Mother Earth. This record is on Mercury Records. Really, really good record if you like country soul music. Marin County, I believe, north of San Francisco. Really good record, but they were a band also on the scene in the Fillmore, the Avalon, the ballroom scene. Marc Knopfler is on this, who played a lot of blues stuff too and soul stuff. So, God, I forgot about this record until I was researching this, but this is really a fantastic, if you like swampy blues, soulful country. Of course, an offshoot of the Grateful Dead. New Riders of the Purple Sage, Jerry Garcia's all over this, and their second album, Panama Red. I love that cover. A band I never see here on the VC, the Pointer Sisters, produced by David Rubinson, who worked with Santana, worked with a lot of San Francisco bands, had a studio called the Automat that used to be the Columbia studio, recording studio in San Francisco on Folsom Street. David Rubinson produced that. These are both really fantastic records, the Pointer Sisters. But these were recorded at Wally Hyder before he owned his studio. Great records, really good, soulful, almost like Boswell's sisters, Andrew's sisters, from a black vocalist way. Really good. Saw them in San Francisco several times. You never see this one here either, the Rowan Brothers. This was much hype from Columbia Records. These are the 2 younger brothers of Peter Rowan, who would later join C-Train and would become like this country artist, country alt fusion artist, Americana in a way. Peter Rowan, a great yodeler. Saw them open up for Hot Tuna at Winterland when this album came out. The record went nowhere, but it's kind of a cool record. On Columbia Records. Rowan Brothers. A favorite of mine that did really, really well in the Bay Area and certain other markets, but the first album by the Tubes. This is produced by Al Cooper, and it's really a cool art rock album. White Punks on Dope, What Do You Want From Life? Boy Crazy, Mondo Bondage. They had a great, great live stage show. Fee Waybill, the lead singer, had this character named Quaalude, but love them, love them, love them. The Tubes, I saw them so many times around this period. They were from the Southwest originally, a band called The Beans, moved to San Francisco and morphed into a Tubes, a bit of an art collective too. The Rubinoos, power pop, again on Berserkly Records. They did some covers of I Think We're Alone Now, the Tommy James and the Shondells song. Really good power pop band. Really, I think they just regrouped. They've been together playing around the Bay Area again after all these years. They were kind of playing around the club scene quite a bit in San Francisco in the late 70s. Again, now 415 Records, a kind of new wave scene, very power pop band. I'm showing two of their records. Translator, Howie Klein's label 415, that was later sold to Columbia or distributed by Columbia. Really good record, especially this one. Everywhere That I'm Not got a lot of Bay Area radio play, and Everywhere. So both of these are kind of cool records. The Do-Rocks. The Do-Rocks are Ron Nagel and Scott Matthews. They were two artists, two producers, musicians that worked with a lot of records. They worked and wrote records for a wide variety of people, even including Barbra Streisand. Ron Nagel is an established ceramic artist now. I think he's like in his mid-80s now. An amazing artist, has a big show at the Berkeley Museum very recently. They're still in San Francisco, but this is kind of a cool record. Promo copy I got, this was on Capitol. They only made one record. Elliot Mazer worked on it with them, the great producer who was part of Nashville area code 615, worked on Neil Young's Harvest and Big Brother's record, Cheap Thrills. I have it somewhere in a box. There was a promo Do-Rocks Coke mirror. Of course, this was the late 70s, 1976, so record companies giving out Coke mirrors. And the last of this particular segment is the Mutants. Kind of an artsy post-punk band, a little new wavy, a little artsy, a little frenetic, a little kooky. But I saw the Mutants many times. This was a fun terminal. It's bizarre, indoor, but open air to the street music, amusement, arcade, kind of funky and seedy south of Market. Now it's the whole part of this, the Yerba Buena project. It's part of Salesforce's big center, and it's gone. You wouldn't even recognize the area, but south of Market was kind of a cool, seedy club scenes of clubs like the Holy Cow and the Stud, and between the gay clubs and the punk clubs and the Club Anonymous, which were the clubs that would pop up and down. So now we're gonna go have a little break here and get into the 21 bands. And if there's more than 21, Maslov can't count, but so be it. Stand by, vinyl community. Okay, 21 bands that matter in San Francisco. No particular order, just because I grabbed them. This is what you're gonna get. No Journey here, sorry. No Metallica. I know Vinyl Richie says they're an LA band, and they kind of started there, but they became a big band from the Bay Area. No heavy metal bands here. No Four Non Blondes, or anyway, no, instead of saying what I don't have, here's what I got. America's answer to the Beatles, the first band that mattered, hot off the charts, Laugh Laugh by the Beau Brummels, managed and promoted on a label by Tom Donahue, who started KMPX, and K-San, the granddaddy of underground radio, produced by Sly Stone, Sylvester Stallone, Sly Stone from Sly and the Family Stone. Laugh Laugh, great record. And I'm going to also show Bradley's Barn, a record that bombed at the time that's become a cult record over the years, came out the same year, around the same time, The Sweetheart of the Rodeo. Country rock record, Doesn't have the same cachet as Sweetheart of the Rodeo, but a wonderful, wonderful record. Recorded at Owen Bradley's barn, I believe near outside of Nashville. But San Francisco band, Beau Brummels, God, what a great, great, great band. Ron Elliott, Ron Meager, Ron Elliott, Sal Valentino, who would later start Stoneground. And unfortunately, I don't have any Stoneground records. Okay, of course, Jefferson Airplane, I don't need to say anything more. I picked 3 records of theirs: Three Stick Pillow, Bathing at Baxter's, and Volunteers. I would say those are the 3 records you need. Bless its Pointy Little Head, bless its Pointy Little Head, they're live, wonderful live record. I just did a big Grateful Dead marathon video, so go see it. But the 3 Grateful Deads I'm picking is the debut, their first official live album, Live Dead, and American Beauty. That with Working Man's Dead are a twin package. One of my favorite bands, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Capitol Records in 1968, and then the mostly live record, Happy Trails. Great, great albums. John Cipollina is one of my favorite of the San Francisco guitar players. I like them better without Dino Valenti. When he came back, he was in the band. He has a great folk record though. Dino Valenti, I didn't show it here, on Epic Records, his first record, folk record. He got busted, went to prison, went to jail, came out, and he joined after their 4th album again with Fresh Air, their biggest hit, but I like this period of Quicksilver best. Of course, can't talk about San Francisco with this amazing record, Moby Grape's first album. This is the original cover, photographed by Jim Marshall with the flip finger, came with a big poster. Columbia Records screwed them by releasing 5 singles at once. Now, their second album was a twofer. Basically, it was this album, Wow, and it came with a, quote, a free jam record. Love the jam record. Cooper and Bloomfield, Mike Cooper and Al Bloomfield are on it. Again, produced by David Rubinson in San Francisco. But fantastic record. I think this has grown with age. At the time, it didn't really do much. Big Brother and the Holding Company, can't say anything about San Francisco without Big Brother and the Holding Company. Their first album was on Mainstream. This is a Sunday's mono reissue of the really rare mono mix. Great record. When I was a kid, my bands did Light is Faster Than Sound. We did Blind Man and Caterpillar. Great record. This features more Janis and her vocal styles throughout, and you all know this record. Great R. Crumb illustrated cover. And I didn't show now, but obviously Janis Joplin's solo records, Pearl and Cosmic Blues, could be included here. Now, a record you don't see here much, but one of my favorite of San Francisco psychedelic bands, Son to Champlin. They morphed, their second album was under the name The Sons. Then for a while they became Yogi Phlem, P-H-L-E-M. What the fuck is that about? This is an amazing record. The first of the San Francisco bands that had a horn section. Came out, I guess, 68, 69 again, around the time or soon after. Chicago Transit Authority came out. A whole different sound, more soulful, jazzy than Chicago. Really, really good record. It vibe players. But this has always been one of my favorite records of the San Francisco scene. So I highly recommend this to anyone else. Son to Champlin. Bill Champlin would later join Chicago, ironically, during their Muzaki period. The band in San Francisco that got a lot of, people knew about them. They played a lot of the ballrooms, but was the Flamin' Groovies. This is the Roy Loney period of Flamin' Groovies. Love them, but they were almost like a retro rock and roll band. They didn't almost fit in with the whole psychedelic scene that was happening in the 60s in San Francisco, but really cool band. This is Super Snaz. Cool record. Roy left the group later. I don't know all the details on why and all that, but they were on Sire and they did more of a power pop, jingly jangly, birds like 12-string guitar sound with Shake Some Action. Did 3 great albums for Sire Records like this. All are good. Shake Some Action is a great song. And anyway, Flamin' Groovies, part of the San Francisco sound. What I consider the first heavy metal album or heavy album, The great power trio, Blue Cheer. I remember getting this record when it came out and was gobsmacked by it. Blue Cheer, our band did Out of Focus, and we did a kind of a version of Summertime Blues, the Eddie Cochran song that they covered. I'm showing the Steve Miller Band. I love the first 5 to 6 Steve Miller albums. To me, are great. After that, I'm not against Fly Like an Eagle and the Jetliner, but I'm kind of like, I'm tired, and I almost for a while couldn't listen to the Sweet Jetliner and all that Fly Like an Eagle stuff. But to me, the ones that matter, they're true psychedelic records. The first 2, Boz Scaggs was in the band then, but Steve Miller, recorded in London by Glyn Johns. Great psychedelic mood piece, and wonderful record. I just fell in love with this and the cover. I bought this and the first Quicksilver Messenger service the same day. Saw a big window display with that by Capitol Records. And of course their second album, the last album with Boz Scaggs, but Sailor, which has the great song Quicksilver Girl, Living in the USA, which is kind of a FM hit at the time, became a big hit much later for Steve Miller once he hit national attention. But he was always popular in the Bay Area and on kind of underground radio at the time. But Steve Miller Band, love the first 5 albums. And I'm going to throw this one in here, Your Saving Grace. An amazing piano on here on Baby's House. Nicky Hopkins, who played with all the San Francisco bands as well as the Stones and many others. One of the great 60s and 70s studio piano player, but toured with Quicksilver, played with Steve Miller, played with the Jefferson Airplane, Woodstock. Great part of it, of the scene in San Francisco. From the East Bay, Country Joe and the Fist, Joe McDonald, Chicken Hirsch, Bruce Bothell, and David Cohen. 4 Jews and an Irishman. Became even more famous for the famous Give Me an F-U-C-K from I Feel Like I'm Fixing a Die Rag. This record came with the fish, with a game. It's actually inside here. You could pull out and cut out, and it was a board game. And actually my original copy, my buddies and I loved this game. We cut it up and we made it and we played it all the time. But not so sweet Martha Lorraine on here is such a great song, Flying High, and the Masked Marauder got a lot of play in the Bay Area. Great records. But I'm gonna, throw my hat in, well, not really, but to their third album, which is sort of a psychedelic soul record in a way. You heard them in the Woodstock film. They do rock and soul music, but this is a cool record. I liked all the records. The one after this is good too. But Together, Country Joe and the Fish, Vanguard Records, produced by Sam Charters, who produced all these, I think their first 4 records. And he's one that worked with a lot of blues artists like Muddy Waters and a lot of blues folk artists, and he worked on these for Vanguard Records, that folk blues scene too. Of course, probably the biggest act that broke nationally out of San Francisco is Creedence Clearwater Revival. I did see them when this album came out at the San Francisco International Pop Festival in Alameda, California, which is an island, military island across the bay near Oakland. And when this album came out, and I was sold because of Susie Q, their cover version of Susie Q. This is a great record, their first album. And their version also, I Put a Spell on You. But obviously, there's Bayou Country and Willie and the Poor Boys. But their first 5 albums, again, I could have included any of them. But Creedence Clearwater from El Cerrito, California, which is north of Berkeley on East Bay of San Francisco. The Great Horn section, Tower of Power, great funkifies. It really kind of epitomized San Francisco East Bay funk. East Bay Grease was their first album on an indie label, then Warner Brothers picked them up. It was on San Francisco Records. What is Hip, So Very Hard to Go. They really broke out nationally as well. Went to high school with Greg Adams. He didn't know me. He was a senior, I was a freshman. He's their trumpet player. Pump City, Bay Area, Bay Bridge, East Bay, Greece. Tower Pound Horn Sections worked on a lot of other albums over the years. They're still playing together, not all the original members, but really a great soulful, funky band, and I'm sure a lot of you know Tower of Power. I did a whole selection feature on Dan Hicks and Hot Licks, very much like in Bob Wills, jazz, folky, humorous in some ways, but really acoustic based. Saw them many times in the Bay Area. Love Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks. Live album, but a really good live album. Very intimate in a small club. Funny, but not a comedy record by any stretch. Just the introductions that Dan Hicks does on these songs. But really, these two are probably two of my favorite. There's like 4 or 5 albums. And then later period. Watch my feature on Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks. An offshoot band, Hot Tuna, Jorma Kakkonen, and the great bass player, Jack Cassidy from the Jefferson Airplane, recorded this record in Berkeley, and it's a beautiful record. There's an expanded edition that came out on Record Store Day a few years ago. This is a great, more acoustic based. They got a little more electric with their second album, which is a studio album, and with expanded Papa John Creech and Sammy Piazza on drums. So more of a band situation. This is photographed San Francisco, near the Great Highway, near the Cliff House, at the edge of Golden Gate Park. Saw Hot Tuna 4 or 5 times. Winterland, a couple club scenes. But just love their bluesy thing. Pretty successful in their own right. Not huge record sellers, but a lot of people love Hot Tuna, even more than the later Airplanes albums in some cases. Sly and the Family Stone, I'm showing Stand, the great record Stand, and There's a Riot Going On. Great part of the Bay Area scene, the Bay Area soul funk scene. Great producer, great artist. God, what a great record Sly Stone made. But live at Woodstock, I mean, he really broke from that Woodstock performance, as did this next band, Santana. I got this record right when it came out. Loved it. Evil Ways. I mean, did covers of Evil Ways, Soul Sacrifice. I think that was an original. Jingo was not. Jingo is written by Olatunji, the great jazz percussionist who had some wonderful records on Columbia Records. Evil Ways, S. Henry. Let's see now. Soul Sacrifice is an original. Soul Sacrifice is the song that really broke Santana in the Woodstock film with the great young drummer Michael Shreve with that great solo and that triple split screen drum solo within that, the great drum breaks. So this, and of course every record, living in the Mission District for 23 years, you'd hear the combo of Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen, and Oye Como Va coming out of cars. It sounds like a cliche in the Latin neighborhood, but Carlos Santana grew up in the Mission, and it's a big part of the music from the Mission. But great band from the Bay Area, San Francisco and the Bay Area. Abraxas, what an amazing record. And their third album, these 3 albums are the original group, so I would say the first 3 are the ones to get. And of course, you know that they kind of, was it Neil Schon, and they started Journey after this, whole different thing. I'm not a big Journey fan, although I like the hits, but that's not my bag. But great anthem, great power rock and roll stuff. You know, they're great band, just not, I have a greatest hits CD, and that's enough for me. Marc Kostelek's project, Red House Painters. I did show a box set with my Dirgy video, so I don't need to show that again. This is Songs for a Blue Guitar. Really a kind of a nice record. Again, Red House Painters, dirge-like music, all in San Francisco, part of the whole 90s thing. Now, someone that doesn't get a lot of love here, his band originally was just called Silvertone, but it's Chris Isaak. Chris Isaak's Silvertone band. The voice like an angel, the voice like he's like a modern day Elvis Presley, a voice like Roy Orbison. Promo copy I got on on Warner Brothers Records. At the time he had James Calvin Wilsey, a guitar player who had a very twangy surf guitar sound. He left the band. There was a falling out after a few albums, but this album is beautiful. It's got a great feel for it. Produced by Eric Jacobson. Produced the first Chris Isaak albums, a few of their albums, and he had produced Love and Spoonful. This is an amazing record, Forever Blue. Didn't have a lot of big hits, Chris Isaak. He did have the song that was with the fashion model during the MTV days that was really a beautiful song. That was a song from David Lynch film. And he actually, not David Lynch film, maybe David Lynch film. Anyway, he also acted, and he'd had a great TV show on HBO or Showtime, I believe, which is really interesting. And he also, Chris Isaak also acted in several films, including Silence of the Lambs and a few Jonathan Demme films. He plays in That Thing You Do, the Tom Hanks film. He's the guy recording the band in the church. He's the engineer, producer in that film. He plays that part. But I love Chris Isaak's voice. He still plays around on the casino circuit, the winery things, but an amazing band, great voice. And I'm a Chris Isaak fan. I've seen him so many times. When he was first starting out, or during his first album and before, there was a club called the Night Break on Haight Street. And he was not necessarily the house band, but they played there regularly all the time at the Night Break, right on the same block as Amoeba Records on Haight Street in San Francisco. Oh, another club I forgot about, the I-Beam, which was upstairs across the street. That was a gay disco, and then they started having new wave and punk shows there. It's where I first saw when the Cure first came to San Francisco, Echo and the Bunnymen, Billy Bragg, Violent Femmes. It was a great place to see music. Now, during that whole early 80s thing too, a band that was very popular in San Francisco, used to play a lot of parties I used to go to, was Romeo Void. Deborah Isle, the vocalist on that. Probably the song that you all know from some movies and soundtracks is You Might Like It Be Better If We Slept Together, Never Say Never. And that is on, I believe it's this, Never Say Never, this EP. And it's produced by Rick Ocasek from The Cars, Never Say Never. This is their first record on 415 Records. As an indie, 415 gets picked up by Columbia. This is actually an indie also, but really good work. And then they're picked up by Columbia, and this is their third album. I do have a fourth one as well. I think they should have gone on. They had some things on MTV, but Deborah and the band, Peter Woobs, guitar player, Benjamin Bossie, a great saxophone, almost like a baritone sax, that had a really good funk sound, not unlike Morphine a little bit. They didn't have the three-piece sound as Morphine. Frank Sienkiewicz on bass and Larry Carter. They went through a couple drummers, I believe, but I used to see these guys all the time in San Francisco. They were part of the post-punk scene, new wavy scene. They played parties, clubs, but Romeo Void was a favorite of mine. So I'm including that in this list. I can't do a San Francisco thing without also probably the most famous punk band out of San Francisco, Dead Kennedys. You all know Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra. I mean, just their name alone shocked the country at the time. But Jello Biafra may or may not be a wanker, but I used to see this band all the time. They were great live. There's also bands around this time that only have 45s, and I'm not pulling 45s. There was Crime. There was the Contractions, which is a female band. Kathy Peck, the bass player in the Contractions, got ear damage from those concerts and those shows, and she's that started the musicians organization here that Pete Townsend helped push along too, because of musicians' ear damage. But here, Kathy Peck started, and to this day it's still an entity that's pretty amazing. But there was so many bands at the time, and punk bands during that time. San Francisco had the big Summer of Love in the late 60s heyday. They had the 70s with the bigger groups when Santana and Journey were getting popular. They had the punk thing with the Dead Kennedys and Crime and the Mabuhay Gardens and all the the pop-up clubs like the Def Club were pretty cool. So Dead Kennedys. And lastly, but again not leastly, I'm including Boz Scaggs Band. Boz Scaggs, as I said, was in Steve Miller Band, and some people think he's too slick and everything. His first record I'm not showing here on Atlantic Records with Dwayne Allman with Loan Me a Dime, fantastic record. But then he signed to Columbia, and he had a string of records which got a lot of airplay, which are amazing records. Boz Scaggs and Band. This is a fantastic record. Monkey Time, Running Blue. It's a very kind of soulful, bluesy pop record, but really, really amazing musicianship, horn section. Same with this, a great song, Dynaflow on here. I did some songs, Freedom for the Stallion, a great song by Alan Toussaint, the great New Orleans piano player, composer, producer. Slow Dancer, Johnny Bristol recorded this record, produced this record, which is a very white, soulful sound. You know, it's got You Make It So Hard, Slow Dancer, Take Her for Granted, Hercules. I mean, it's I don't want to say power pop. It's not power pop, but it's sort of soul pop ballads and funky, you know, kind of Philly soul, Philadelphia soul. Really good. And of course, the biggest selling album of his career, and one of the biggest selling albums also to come out of San Francisco in 1975 is this. This got a lot of love, and then I think, you know, over the last few years didn't get a lot but it had 4 or 5 huge hits. Georgia, Low Down, Harbor Lights, Lido Shuffle. Great, great record, and a great cover photograph by Moshe Braca, a really great photographer, did a lot of albums. So that's 21 rock bands plus Maslow's San Francisco, my hometown. Do a video on your hometown or your favorite city. I want to see more of these. 21 or whatever you decide. Mazzy loves you. Thanks for watching.